Welcome to a brand new edition of NFL Power Rankings. It is presented by Energizer. Mike Am, along with the man who's got the toughest job in the building. I say that with all sincerity because ranking teams 1 through 32, if you think that's hard, imagine what kind of reaction Eric gets on social media when he puts a team that their fan base thinks they should be a little bit higher. The complete rankings, NFL.com. If you're watching, you can also scan our QR code. Do you have a favorite post from the last couple weeks or so about a fan base that's passionate about where you have them slotted, Eric?
Yeah, very enthusiastic Bills fan ripping me for putting them at number 2 overall, right? The disrespect, can you imagine, Mike? It's shocking at this point. I get if you're a Bills fan, you've seen Josh Allen do some amazing things this season, but let's have some perspective. Lions are pretty good too, you know?
Well, I'm glad, and that's probably the best place to start with the number 1 team as we take you through the rankings 1 through 8. Yeah, no change at the top there. The Lions just continue to ball. And yes, we do have a new number 2 team. You did give the Bills plenty of respect. They beat the Chiefs, so they sit at 2. Kansas City suffers their first loss. They drop a spot to 3. The Eagles, welcome to first place in the NFC East. The Vikings at 5. They're an 8-win football team. Massive win by the Steelers, who we will talk about in just a couple minutes as they take out the Ravens, who sit 7. The number 8 team, the Packers, a dramatic block field goal walk-off win. Time for the team of the week, and it's presented by Truist. All right, let's start with the number 2 team. It is the Buffalo Bills. I ask you this sort of with a smile on my face, knowing some of the social media reaction that you get. This is a Bills squad that's beaten the Chiefs last 4 regular season games. They haven't beaten them in the postseason the last 3 times. Does the win from the weekend even matter?
It does, but maybe not in a we've got their their number kind of way. We, like you said, obviously the postseason record speaks for itself. Buffalo's still got to prove itself once it gets to the postseason, especially when you know that inevitable rematch is coming. But yeah, I mean, it's important because it keeps the door open for the Bills to potentially steal the number 1 seed. Now the AFC East is all but wrapped up. We know that, but it also speaks to the fact that they won without Dalton Kincaid. They won without Keon Coleman. I mean, they're still kind of shorthanded on defense and were able to play a great game. The run game wasn't terrific, but when you have Josh Allen doing things like this, it all tends to work out pretty well. So big day for Buffalo's defense. Couple of interceptions, also the 3 and outs, and I don't think you could ask for more. But like you said, until we get to the postseason, until these 2 teams face again, that Bills-Chiefs thing still has an asterisk by it.
Yeah, look, this is a great barometer game for Buffalo, and candidly, because of some of those injuries, Eric, I thought Kansas City was going to win this football game. I was all prepared in my mind last week finishing the show going, hey, you know, what do we make of this Kansas City squad, who you have at number 3? They continue to win some of these football games. Now, they lost this matchup, but I sit here and go, this might be a good thing for this squad, and hear me out, Eric. This is a team trying to win a 3rd consecutive Super Bowl. And now all of a sudden you got this undefeated season, the legacy of this franchise with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. Like, now you don't have to worry about that. You got the loss out of the way. Let's just move on and really accomplish the task at hand, which is to make sure you get a first-round bye in the postseason and got an opportunity to hoist another Lombardi.
Absolutely, right? I mean, it would be great for a team like the Chiefs that has accomplished so much over the last 5-6 years to add another feather in their cap with an unbeaten season. Sure, it's not in the cards this year. It's not going to happen. Now their focus, like you said, is on sealing up that number 1 seed. Don't let the Bills get hot. Try to have that rematch, if it does happen, occur in Arrowhead Field and not up at Highmark. So, yeah, that's obviously the focus here. Isaiah Pacheco on track to get back. They're still finding ways to get DeAndre Hopkins involved in the playoffs or involved in the offense, rather. And, you know, I mean, look, it's another week of rest if they get that bye for guys like Travis Kelce, who, takes so much wear and tear over this course of the season. Patrick Mahomes, too, still playing with the, a little bit banged up with the ankle and everything. So, yeah, the focus hasn't changed. Obviously, this team takes care of business more often than not. So while Sunday was a setback, I don't think it was a major one.
All right, so as far as the AFC teams are concerned, yes, it's Buffalo. Yes, it's Kansas City. We'll have a conversation on the Steelers and the Ravens. I think there's a real conversation by the end of the season to decide which team we think is truly the best team in that conference, because I still think it's up in the air and it's maybe not the team that most would point to. Meanwhile, the Philadelphia Eagles, quiet start here. I don't know if at one point this season, Eric, you might have had them outside of the top 10, but right now they move up to the number 4 spot. As dangerous as they come in the NFL, and to me, they're peaking. I don't want to say it's the right time, but clearly the second half of the season, they're dangerous.
Yeah, at no point really, or at least not very many points towards the end of that 10-1 streak they were on last season, did I say, okay, this is unquestionably one of the best teams in football. Their record said they were, but the numbers told a different story. This year, however, I feel like it's a stronger club, even with a worse record, and they've been, like you said, sort of growing since the bye week in all three phases, really. I think especially on defense, you've seen the big improvement there. Yeah, there's still a little bit of a slow starting offense. Would like to see a little more first quarter action there from them, but by the end of the game, they find a way to kind of crank themselves up to a rolling boil. Saquon Barkley's in the MVP discussion, even for a running back. Jalen Hurts has played great football. They have their stud receivers back. Goddard's back. You know, it's all shaping up nicely, and they are dominant in both lines of scrimmage, which to me says a lot about a contender. If you're healthy on the offensive and defensive lines and you've got difference makers up front, you have an excellent chance to make some damage in the postseason.
Look, we're going to talk about the Rams a little bit later here on Power Rankings. They get that team Sunday Night Football across the street from where our studios are at SoFi Stadium. I can't help but think that the Rams are going to be haunted by a loss on Monday Night Football against Miami the other week. They responded with a win against the Patriots, but boy, get this one, get the Sharpie out and circle it. That is going to be must-see television. It is time, though, for Future Champions, presented by FanDuel, as we take a look at the odds for the AFC North. Hello, the Pittsburgh Steelers, still the favorite to win this division, according to FanDuel. The Baltimore Ravens, not far behind. I still can't believe the way Cincinnati lost that game against the Chargers. What a heartbreaking loss. And then the Cleveland Browns bringing up the rear. But let's focus in on the number 6 team. It's the Steelers. Yeah, they're in first place in this division. I'm going to say it, Eric, knowing that I might take some heat for it. I think they got lucky against the Ravens.
I think they did too, right? You win a game without scoring a touchdown.
Send the hate to Eric.
Boswell.
I might have said it first, but he doubled down on it.
Absolutely. No, I'm with you, right? Come after both of us. I think it's a fact. Now, look, obviously you can't negate the fact that Nate Herbert made a great impact defensive play right away, kind of spurred everybody excitement. Patrick Queen made the big turnover right before halftime. Peyton Wilson, same thing. Look, they play Lamar Jackson great, right? They got just enough big plays from Pickens and Harris and guys like that. But it wasn't a great game from Russell Wilson. The offense still had some fits here and there. The defense still was a 2-point conversion away from losing this game, and they had to have missed kicks from Baltimore just to get to that point. So, yeah, in no way, shape, or form should the Steelers be beating their chest and saying we're the clear, kings of the AFC North at this point. But they have had Baltimore's number in recent matchups. They seem to kind of get in their heads a little bit and muddy up the waters when they play them. So that rematch looms large. It's going to have a big say on who ends up winning the division. But Steelers are in a really nice place all of a sudden. They're in a good spot. Game and a half up, 2 in the loss column, feeling pretty good.
Yeah, what's the old adage? Better be lucky than good. By the way, I think the Steelers are a good football team. All I'm saying is three turnovers the Ravens had, the 2 missed field goals, a missed 2-point conversion, and Derrick Henry, who never fumbles, right. And they lose by 2. That's the argument there. That's Steelers once again. A really good football team. Yeah. I mean, it is what it is. The Ravens, though, you actually dropped them 3 spots. They get the Chargers on Monday Night Football. Great game that is looming. But based off of the way that they played against the Steelers, should I be worried about this squad?
It's like every week we've got sort of a new area to focus on, right? Yeah. I know we've talked about Justin Tucker. He's had struggles throughout the season. That was an issue Sunday. The defense, which has been a problem more often than not, actually played pretty darn well, I thought. So it was a big bounce back game for Zach Orr's group. Did enough on that side of the ball. But offensively, this was Lamar Jackson's worst game in over a year probably. And he still made plays, but it wasn't enough. And they seem to kind of get in his head and, force him to make some uncharacteristic throws, not very accurate. This is the problem if you are so heavily reliant on what has been a great offense, no question about it. Things like this happen if you can't have that great day offensively. It requires everything else to be really buttoned up, and 2 missed field goals not so buttoned up. Penalties have been an issue all season long, Mike. That's one of those things where you say, look, John Harbaugh and his staff are great, but hard not to overlook the results. The bottom line is they're just making mistakes.
Yeah, I still can't believe we're talking about a 7-4 football team. And for what it's worth, all of us are fans, Eric, and sometimes you're watching a game and you just throw out something. You have no idea if it's fact or not. I had said this to myself. I'm like, I don't think there's a team in the NFL that's got more drops on third down. Well, here's the beauty of working at NFL Network. You can just ask your research department. They looked it up for me. They are tied for the 5th most, only 4 drops. But as I was told, hey, sometimes that is a little bit of an arbitrary stat. But the point is, it's still a really high number for them. It's apparently 4 on the season. I feel like it's more than 4, but the point is there's been quite a few of those. Meanwhile, there is a team that we haven't even name checked. In fact, they're in the next tier of squads that I think is as dangerous as they come in the postseason. We'll tell you who it is, and we'll get Eric's take on that. That's still to come here on Power Rankings. Back here on Power Rankings, teams 9 through 16. Here we go. The Chargers, very, very dangerous. That's the squad that I made reference to before the break. I don't think anyone wants to take on this team. The Commanders dropped 2 spots following a loss. The Houston Texans get a big Monday Night Football win. I think there's more questions than answers right now around that squad. Oh, I love the Arizona story with this Cardinals team who sits 12. Bo Nix is balling. They're at 13. The 14th ranked team is the Buccaneers. The Seahawks score a big win in the Bay Area against the Niners. They are the 15th ranked team, and San Francisco sitting at 16. This is a Charger squad. They blew a 21-point halftime lead. I felt like this thing was over. Cincinnati makes the run. They still figure out a way to get a win. I think there's something to be said for it, and I know people are throwing out, hey, not the same old Chargers there, but I think there's something to it. I don't know if this squad, after blowing a lead like that in previous seasons, would have had the mental fortitude to come back and win.
Oh, yeah. I mean, tell me you didn't watch that game and immediately think of the Jacksonville playoff game, right? I understand it's a different coaching staff, and that obviously makes a big difference, I think. I mean, even if Jim Harbaugh had that glazed look on his face at times in the second half, they found a way. They were tough. I mean, Justin Herbert, I think, was like 5 for 18 at one point in the second half, missed some big throws, and then found Ladd McConkey for the 2 big plays late. That ultimately was the difference. I mean, obviously, Cincinnati not being able to convert. This has been a very, very good Chargers defense all season long. They've kept point totals down. They hadn't allowed more than 20 points in a game all season. They allowed 21 in about an 8-minute stretch there in the second half. So there are some questions with that secondary. The pass rush didn't always get home, but still, as you said, I think there is just a different attitude, a different belief there now that they aren't the butt of the joke anymore. They can go out and win these types of games. So big statement with Ravens next week, Chiefs in a couple weeks. They've got some tougher tests up ahead.
Yeah, we'll talk Cincinnati coming up in just a bit. By the way, during the game broadcast, you mentioned some of the numbers for Herbert. I couldn't believe it, and if I'm misquoting him, totally my bad. But I thought Mike Tirico said there was a 0 for 7 stretch for Justin Herbert, which was the longest incompletion stretch of his career. Just have that resonate in your mind for just a moment. That's how good Herbert's been in his young career. Yeah, terrific. Texans win on Monday Night Football. Lopsided win here. Is there a team in the AFC playoff picture that would be scared of them, though?
Fair question. Good question. Yeah, I don't know that there is. You look at the Chargers if they end up facing off as a 5-4 matchup, or the Ravens. I don't think either one of those teams is going into Houston scared. I mean, you saw Monday night. Obviously, the score indicated a kind of a lopsided victory, as you said. But Nico Collins' touchdown gets pulled off the board on the first play of the game because of penalty, and it kind of emblematic of the entire game, right? There was some promising stuff. Collins was back. Joe Mixon was terrific. Stroud kind of settled down after the early pick, but also several steps back as well. Penalties, mental errors, things like that. They got a defensive touchdown that kind of bumped up the score a little bit. And credit goes to that defense. I mean, Danielle Hunter was great. The strip and score from Derek Barnett, outstanding. Derek Stingley in coverage, great. But let's also point out the fact that other than Mixon, they didn't have a whole lot of consistent offensive, firepower, if you will. So I do have a little bit of worry about them finishing drives. And are they going to play this well defensively every week? I'm not so sure. It was a backup quarterback in Dallas. So still those questions exist. They remain the massive favorite to win the AFC North, or South, I should say, and get that home game. But to your point, I don't know anyone's going to be going in there really scared about facing them at this point.
Yeah, I think there's still there are more questions than answers right now around this Houston squad, especially on the offensive side. Still a positive. I'd rather have some of those teaching moments with a win. Nico Collins coming back obviously should be a huge boost. We did see him flash yesterday in that win, or Monday night, I should say, against the Cowboys. The one team you could make an argument to the question that I had, and you and I were talking off air about this, is the Broncos squad, maybe in that postseason mix, not scaring teams. But the way Bo Nix is playing, like I get what we're seeing at the top of that quarterback class with Caleb and Jaden Daniels. Bo Nix, let's not forget, he kind of fell a little bit. He's balling right now, and the Broncos are winning some football games.
Absolutely. One of the first rookies to complete 80% of his passes, throw for more than 300 yards, career high on Sunday, and also have 4 or more touchdowns in a single game. Actually, he's the only one to ever do that, but it was a lot of zone defense from Atlanta. He took the reads that were there. Sean Payton's play calling certainly helped Bo Nix out a lot in that game. But, when he had the few opportunities to create, he made plays too. So you see him kind of letting that leash out. Payton, they have this interesting relationship, a little tough love, but also an appreciation from Payton, talking about the maturity and the poise that Nix has shown and the toughness. So he's a running factor. He's thrown the ball accurately. He dissects zones like he's back in college. I was very impressed, and that Denver D holds up too. So they've been great. I'm not saying it's a Super Bowl caliber club, but I do think it is the kind of club that, like you said, if there was a Texans-Broncos type of matchup in round 1, they could go in there and give them a darn good game and possibly come out with a win. So really good progress from the start of last season till now. Sean Payton has done an excellent job, I think.
I don't want to speak for you. I'll just speak for myself. I didn't see this happening. Like, Bo Nix, great. He could ball, ton of experience. Even if he was playing well, I didn't see a turnaround like this, especially if you look at what this Broncos team looked like on the football field a season ago. There was a lot of questions around this team, so major respect, hat tip to Sean Payton and what that organization is doing. Time for Power Moves presented by Energizer. Sitting at number 15, it's the Seattle Seahawks, Eric, who move up 2 spots. They get an Arizona squad. Speaking of things that I didn't see happening, going on the road, beating the San Francisco 49ers in the Bay Area, that's a big-time win. And all of a sudden, this division looks as wonky as ever.
Sure does. 1 through 4. I mean, it's sort of almost where we thought the NFC North was a month ago, but it's not quite as powerful on top. San Francisco's had a disappointing season. Seahawks started 3-0, then fell back. But when you see a game like this and the way it played out, San Francisco had every opportunity to win it. The Seahawks dug in, found a way. Great last drive. Geno finishes it off. He's been through so much up there. The ebbs and flows, the ups and downs. Now a coaching change this past season, but really got to admire what he can do at the end of a game after he's taken a lot of hits and had some disappointments. So again, like you said, we kind of write them off, push them out of the picture a little bit. They find their way to wedge back in. It wasn't pretty on either side of the ball, but you got to give the Seahawks their kudos. They're actually small favorites against the Cardinals, who've been terrific this season, played a tough schedule, but yeah, they got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, let's see how that one shakes out, I think, for both of these teams, because Arizona is one of those squads that I'm sitting here going, all right, like, I'm believing in it, but to get this one against Seattle really gives them a leg up inside that division. But we're in the second half of the bottom half, I should say, the rankings. And Eric, there are 2 teams that are lurking right now that truly believe they have a run in the postseason in them. We'll tell you who those squads are. That's coming up next on Power Rankings. Back here on Power Rankings, team 17 through 24, the Falcons dropped 3 spots to 17, 38-6. I won't actually read what I have in my notes regarding that finish, but not necessarily appropriate for this show. At number 18, it's the Miami Dolphins. Still hopes alive for the postseason. They were one of those teams that I was alluding to that feels like, hey, maybe there's a run here. They look like the old Miami Dolphins over the weekend. The Rams, a road win. They're sitting at 500. They move up 2 spots. The Colts, how about Anthony Richardson coming alive against the Jets? There's some news surrounding Gang Green in just a moment. Cincinnati, they dropped 3 spots. They're at 4-7. I'm not totally ready to put a fork in them, Eric. I don't know if you are. The Chicago Bears also dropped 3 spots. The Saints, once again, looking like they have some signs of life in that offense. They are 23, and Joe Douglas, the general manager of the New York Jets, has been fired. So Saleh gone, Joe Douglas is gone, and major questions this offseason about the direction of this organization. Let's focus in on this Ram squad. They move up to 2 spots. We talked about their opponent against Philadelphia that they have on Sunday Night Football. They've won 4 out of 5 here. Eric, to me, they're friggin' dangerous. Like, this team is legitimate, and when they are healthy, as good as any in the NFC.
I think we'll look back on that Dolphins loss and say it was a big missed opportunity for them. Because I think you're right. For the most part, they have looked really good. You know, we've seen Nakua come back. He had the diving touchdown last week. And then they pull Colby Parkinson out of mouthballs, and Stafford throws him an absolutely beautiful touchdown. It was really about the passing game in this one. New England secondary had no idea how to handle Kupp and Nakua and all the other weapons. Very impressive. Stafford looked, was kind of back to his gunslinging ways, looked very comfortable back there. No worry about the pass rush. So those issues have kind of gone by the wayside. This Rams defense, it's an emerging group. It's still one that is prone to some setbacks, and they let New England kind of hang around. Drake May had the ball with a chance to win at the end. They get the late pick to hold on. I'm curious. They did, kind of pass up the field goal. Are they worried about Cardi, the kicker? I don't know. But like you said, dangerous team on the right day. They can beat almost anybody.
Yeah. Mothballs, that's still a thing.
I see it in the store. I don't know if I ever buy it, though.
Yeah, I haven't bought. It's like, that's always like a grandma thing in my mind. I know maybe I'm not alone, or maybe I am on that one. The Cincinnati Bengals, I've been high on this team. I've been a supporter of them making the postseason. They lose again. Is there an argument?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think they're about under 10% in the NFL the next gen stats playoff percentages. There's just a real tough stretch right here. The best they can finish is 10-7. Kind of requires them obviously running the table, but also kind of pulling off some upsets. 2 games left against the Steelers. I mean, it's not dead, but it's certainly on life support right now. And you could see how unhappy everybody was in that sideline prior to the comeback. And it didn't end the right way. I mean, they were in great position, 12 minutes to go, all the momentum on their side, couldn't pull it off. It just feels like there's always 1 or 2 critical mistakes in each of these losses that really fell them at the wrong time. So, even with Josh Norman playing well in the secondary, I think there's some issues back there that they may not be able to clean up this season.
I'm looking at their schedule right now. There is a chunk of games that are gettable. I'm just throwing that out there. They have the bye. Yep. Steelers is not necessarily one of those teams. Cowboys are free falling. Titans aren't necessarily a good team. Browns, I get it in the division, but not world beaters. And then it's Broncos and Steelers. So I'm not saying it's an impossible schedule, but if we see the defense play like it did in the second half against the Chargers, feel confident about that offense, maybe they can run the table. Still, once again, this is going to be an uphill battle for them. Meanwhile, teams 25 through 32, as I made reference to the Dallas Cowboys, a little bit of a tough deal. And then no change across the board. You got the Cleveland Browns at 26, the New England Patriots at 27, the Carolina Panthers probably still feeling themselves after that win in Munich at 28. The Giants making some news we'll get to in just a moment. And then your bottom 3 teams, the Titans, the Raiders, and the Jags. My God, that Jags roster to sit there at 32. I know we talked about it last week. Still shocking to me. But Tommy Cutlets, let's go for the G-Man. Daniel Jones going to be your third-string quarterback. There's some contract issues there, which is why they're going down that path here. But what does the quarterback change actually mean for New York?
Yeah, I guess it'll just sort of give opponents a different look and hopefully energize the team like DeVito did last season for a brief spell. Took too many sacks, went back to the bench eventually, but, did light a fire under this team, and they clearly don't think Drew Lock can do it. So they keep talking about football decisions. I understand that applies to Jones. It probably applies to DeVito too, but clearly this is a coach in a front office that feels like it needs to win games down the stretch to feel comfortable about their situation heading into the offseason.
I had posted this on Twitter and Blue Sky. Yes, I'm there as well. And this is before the Joe Douglas firing.
Right.
Football in New York is done. I mean, we're thinking about the draft. I'm a Giants fan. I've talked about it on the show, Eric. Like, I'm thinking about what quarterback they're going to be taking in next year's class.
Yep.
That's the point that we are at.
That's where we're at.
Awesome week of football. Eric, you're the best man. Always appreciate your time and going through teams 1 through 32.